Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Fast and Furious Crossroads for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Crossroads is an officially licensed Fast and Furious game. This game takes place somewhere during the Fast and Furious universe that is really never explained, mostly because even though you play as Dom and Letty at certain points in the story, the majority of the story is focusing on two new characters in Vienna and Cam, who are on the run from a secret that we really don't know about as gamers, as players, until later on in the story. Vienna and Cam get twisted into a relationship with some guy that just so happens to owe the Moroccan mob a bunch of money. So what do you do when you owe the mob a bunch of money? Of course you go street racing. You try to win that money. You try to get fast cash. And that's exactly what happens in the beginning of the story, but it expands very quickly. Unfortunately, from what I've seen thus far, the story really isn't that good. One of the biggest problems is the pacing. One moment you're street racing, next moment you're in a heist. But what about the gameplay? The gameplay, of course, is a Fast and Furious game, so you have to have some great racing gameplay. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen here as well. When it comes to handling vehicles, it's very arcade-like. The streets are, in a lot of ways, paved with ice or have little to no friction. And your car will drift, it will slide, it will act like it has no friction between the tires and the road. It takes some getting used to, even though this does have a semi-open world environment at times during certain missions. A majority of the tracks, a majority of the roads are very, very narrow. So you don't have a lot of room to drift or swing without colliding into the wall. And each car has a life bar, so when that life bar goes to zero, of course, it is mission failed. Even though this is a racing game, even though this is a Fast and Furious game, there is no ability to modify your cars because pretty much with every mission you get a different vehicle, and when you don't get a different vehicle, it's because of the mission. And that ties into one of the biggest gameplay aspects during certain missions, and that is special abilities. Certain cars have special abilities like having a grappling hook or a harpoon, or being able to spill oil for oil slicks, or being able to actually hack from your car, which is one of the most annoying mini games I've encountered thus far, especially when you're actually driving. When you have multiple protagonists going at one time, you can actually switch with the directional pad from, say, Dom to Letty and back again. Sometimes the game actually dictates what character you should switch to, but a majority of the time when you have multiple characters, you know exactly who to switch to because they will tell you on screen, okay, I need to do this, and then of course you switch to that character. It actually is pretty fun to switch from character to character mid-mission, but it's so few and far between, it's so rare that you don't really get the full brunt of it. You don't really get the full experience and the joy of being a family in the heat of battle. The missions themselves, as I've stated, this is a racing game, so majority of the time it's going from point A to point B or winning this race, but that's where some of the problems come in. This game will have you failing a lot. You will fail missions even when you don't think you failed missions, and there are times when you will actually pass missions when you think you failed missions. One example is a very early race in the game where in the first try I got 4th place and had to redo the race. The second try I got 4th place and the game continued. It actually played the next cutscene as if I had won the race. The other big aspect when it comes to Crossroads is the multiplayer, and this also has a big flaw to it. The game requires that you need 9 players at a time in this 3 versus 3 versus 3 cops, robbers, and heroes missions. The online missions are usually very simple. Sometimes you'll have one team of heroes and one team of villains being chased by one team of cops as the heroes and the villains try to get to the safe zone. Or the heroes will try to take out a truck that is being protected by the villains, all the while the cops are still trying to arrest everyone. And this goes on in very short periods of time. The biggest issue with this is the fact that the game requires that you have 9 players, that you have 3 players per team before a game can start. If the lobby isn't full, you will sit there and you will have to wait. And it took me so many tries so much time to finally get a game, and thankfully I got two, because the majority of the people that were involved in the first one stuck around for another game. And even then, with the online functionality being okay when it actually works, there's really not that much to grab onto. There's really not that much to enjoy, other than the fact that a lot of the customization options are locked solely behind the online multiplayer. So if you want to have the ability to customize vehicles, if you want to have more vehicles, you have to play online, and that is pretty much impossible even if you want to. Technically, the game is rough. It doesn't look very good. It looks really like a 7th generation game. The frame rate, mostly when you're in the world, is not that bad, but shockingly, the cutscenes have some of the most dramatic frame rate drops I've ever seen in a video game. Another problem is that you can't change the camera angle. You will be forever stuck directly behind your car. You can't be inside. You can't pull the camera back. It's not available, which makes no sense to me. How in the world in a racing game you cannot have multiple camera angles? Overall, Fast and Furious Crossroads is an example of what used to be the norm. It's not technically polished. It doesn't have a great story. The gameplay is okay. The online functionality is okay when you can find enough people. It is absurd, some of the decisions that were made, including having to have 9 players for the online mode. It's absurd, some of the decisions that are made when it comes to the missions and when it comes to the qualifications of passing certain missions. And most importantly, it's absurd that this game came out in 2020. Because if this was 2009, 2010, I wouldn't really be that harsh on it. It feels like a game that came out a generation ago. This is the type of game you should avoid. If it's even a free game on Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, I still wouldn't suggest you getting it. I still wouldn't suggest you downloading it. It's just a waste of time, and it's unfortunate. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Fast and Furious Crossroads for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Now if you don't mind, I have this gigantic ball I have to tether, and I will drive through each and every environment like a wrecking ball. And if it doesn't blow up, I'll be happy, but if it does, I will have no choice but to say, oh lordy.